Hello, everyone. Welcome into episode 39 of the Four Quarters podcast powered by Four Quarters Media. I'm your host, Tyler Bennett, here with you once again. Episode 39 marks the start of our season 2 finale week. And before we get into the interviews and everything else, small error, I guess, on my end, a lack of realization, if you will. I use Adobe After Effects to put everything together. Realized it only allows you to do 3 hours max in a video. That doesn't cut it for this week's episodes. So we had to adjust on the fly. We're going to release each interview in its own parts 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, whatever the day brings. So it's all going to be one kind of feature show. You're going to hear this intro on every one of episode 39's interviews, so apologies in advance. But all the content is going to be there for you. You can pick and choose who you want to listen to at any given time and go from there. We start off on episode 39. We go with CCAA Men's Basketball Spotlight Show. On all 4 days this week, Monday to Thursday, we are going cross-country, men's and women's basketball, talking to as many guests, as many coaches as we can. And on the men's basketball show today, 4 of the 5 leagues will be represented. We unfortunately had all of our media requests to the RSEQ in Quebec go unanswered, which is fine, which is okay. No hard feelings at all by any means. 2020 has been a year. Things happen, things come up. People aren't in the office. People aren't even working at the moment. Who knows what circumstances the individuals are under that I reached out to. We'll continue to try and get more Quebec content on the podcast in season 3 when the new year rolls around. But still, 4 fantastic guests on the CCAA Men's Basketball Spotlight Show. And depending on which episode you're on right now, you're going to have a fantastic guest to listen to. In part 1, we start on the East Coast in the ACAA. We chat with St. Thomas Tommy's men's basketball head coach, John Hickey. We look at everything from his career coming back to St. Thomas. We look at the lengthy high school career he's had at Leo Hayes prior to returning to St. Thomas, where he was a student to start with and then came back to obviously coach the men's basketball program. We looked at his transition, how it's been taking over the program, and kind of what went into last season into his coaching approach and how he adjusted to life as a head coach at the collegiate level. If you're on part 2, you're going to hear from Lambton Lions men's basketball head coach James Grant from the OCAA, a person I work with either right next door or right down the hall, depending where we are on any given day. We look at the basketball community in Sarnia-Lambton, and we look at how over time and throughout history that's become more and more ingrained in generations of families all across the city and the county, for that matter. And we looked at what that means to Coach Grant, to the men's basketball program at Lambton, and Lambton College as a whole. And he started the interview with a unique arrival story of one Mike Lucier. And we talked about how Lucier went from one of the more unique entrances on day 1 of tryouts to closing his 5-year career as arguably one of the best to ever wear a Lambton jersey. So that was an interesting story. And then if you're on part 3 right now, you'll be hearing from Nate Ook's men's basketball head coach, Slav Kornick. Coach Slav and I, we discussed his journalism career, which followed his time at Nate as a student, similar career trajectory, if you will, as Coach Hickey out of St. Thomas. We looked at Coach Cornick's return to Nate and how his adjustment went with returning to the institution where he was a student, and how the dynamic has changed for him now coming back as a head coach for the program that he played for as a student athlete. And we also looked at the challenges and the positives that came with taking over the men's basketball program at Nate, where he sees the program going and kind of what he wants the program to embody on a daily basis. And then if you're on part 4, you're going to hear from our Pac West featured guest, head coach Cassidy Kannemeyer from the Capilano Blues. Coach Kannemeyer makes his return to the podcast. He was back on June 8th as we opened season 2, actually. So it's been a few months since Coach Kannemeyer has been on the show. We had a lot of optimism the first time around that there would be some sort of 2019 or 2020-21 season, if you will. That's not the case anymore. So we can do a follow-up, if you will, with Coach Kannemeyer. We look at kind of what the last 5 months have been like for him, how things have gone with the team, with the recruiting class. They've announced more recruits since we last talked, so he gave us a rundown on all the new faces that the Blues have this year and just kind of what they're hoping for in the new year when it comes to workouts, to player development, to a new season in 2021-22. We just follow up on the first episode and pick up where we left off and just had a great chat, all in all. So whether you're on part 1 or part 3 right now, or part 4 or part 2, you're in for a good interview. Let's just say that. There's a lot of information, a lot of nuggets of wisdom from the coaches, none of which come from me. I just want to clarify that now. If you're coming into this expecting some sort of wisdom from myself, sorry to disappoint. You are here for the wrong reason, because I leave that to the trained professionals. But with that all said, let's jump right in to whatever part of episode 39 that you are on now, between myself and the guest listed on the subject line of this episode. Enjoy. All right, so as we wrap up our CCAA men's basketball spotlight show, we go to the Pac West on the West Coast with Capilano Blues men's basketball head coach Cassidy Kannemeyer making his return to the show 5.5 months later, June 8th. We had you. How are things on your end since we last talked?
Wow. I wonder, I should have listened to it before I came on, because it would have been interesting to see a bit of my optimism, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Where I was at mentally. Right now, we literally last week came down with the news that, our season's canceled. We were the last league to cancel our season, and our players, my players were devastated. And yeah. I think this is a good time to kind of like shed light on how amazing they've been, because we have players from Ontario, we have players from we have a player from Serbia, we have a player from Brooklyn, New York, we have a player from Tacoma, Washington.
Jeez.
And players that have played in Alberta. All these guys have still come and are practicing 3 days a week. We've scaled down the practices,
right? And
we're our scrimmages are against ourselves, and so we have 21 guys. And I just want to say, like, these guys have been unreal. Like, it's been amazing buy-in. The guys, I think for all of us, it's a bit of what I've maybe mentioned before. Like, it's good for our mental health.
100%.
Right now, this world is a crazy world. where things are going sideways, things are
Right.
not making sense, families are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are so resilient to, you know, manage school, manage practice,
Mm-hmm.
and manage this pandemic and the mental health that comes from it. And a lot of my guys are working too. So
Right.
add that on to the equation. We're so fortunate here in BC to have, I guess, like, you know, we can still go to work, we can
Mm-hmm.
still feel normal in that sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we haven't had the full shutdown over here, so I think that's helped keep things together. And our basketball, even though it was shut down the last 2 weeks because our numbers spiked, I think for the guys, I think, you know, I'm so glad we get to go practice tonight, and we get to practice
Right.
tomorrow and Thursday, and we get about, you know, 2.5, I think 3 weeks of practice still before exams. And by
Okay.
practice, I really mean like it's now that our season's over. I think it's about maintenance,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's maintain a reasonable playing shape. Let's maintain the systems and structures that we've already implemented, and add, add for the, you know, the I guess like the to keep players mentally sharp,
Right.
right? And the more we add, the more fun we'll have in practice too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we haven't even put in any defensive systems yet,
Right.
but we've been working just on our offensive breakout and our offensive primary and secondary breaks. And tonight we'll stay with those and stick with those, and not add anything new, but review it so we can play against each other tomorrow. You know, like a 40-minute real game, and
Right.
then on Thursday. And that's what we were doing. We were filming them. The coaching staff was watching them,
Mm-hmm.
and we were giving the guys notes, or thoughts, or keeping stats. So we have like stats. Do we have wins? How many
Okay.
wins do guys have?
Right.
And what are guys' records? And I've been ranking the positions, and to keep things competitive and fun.
Right.
And that's really the goal now, with the season being canceled. Like, like, let's have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work really hard on the offensive side of the ball, because
Right.
you start doing defensive drills now. I mean, we might have mental breakdowns in practice. Like, I'm sorry to say that, but I want to walk the line, right?
Right.
I want to walk the line on all our sanities.
Right.
And I've talked to coaches a lot in September and October, and we haven't been talking as much as we normally do lately,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's coming to grips with how serious this
Right.
pandemic is.
Yeah.
And thank goodness Capilano school is very, very safety oriented, because
Mm-hmm.
all the coaches are wearing masks, all the players are doing check-ins. I had players text me today like, "Oh, I was at work, but I wasn't working with the guy that got COVID." And they're all very aware of it. No one's
Right.
taking any unnecessary risk to practice if there's any issues. And that's good. That's
Yeah.
that's the beauty of having an older team, right? Like,
Right.
older group of guys that really give a damn about everybody's safety. And we had that talk in September, like, this is what this is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's going to be like. It's not going to be the same. We hope we have a season. Now we don't have a season, but
Right.
we have to be safe. We have to be responsible to each other, and let's try to keep our sanity and keep our mental health up, and have as much fun as possible playing the game and coaching the game that we love.
It shows that maturity in the guys, like you said, with the veteran team. Like, they
Oh
know
yeah.
what to do, what not to do. They know the precautions, and to take it a lot more serious than I think maybe some of the younger players in different areas might do. But I think if you implemented those defensive schemes and everything else, one defensive like breakdown would just send so many guys on that tipping point, because like we've said, everybody's got a lot going on. One breakdown may be what sends somebody to that mental breakdown. And I'd probably be that guy. That would be me 100%. I admit it right now. If you put me in a defense, I'd probably just stop in the middle of the floor and just let it all go out of frustration.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's, our practices are looking a lot like lots of shooting,
Yep.
competitive shooting, walking through offense. When based on where the restrictions were at, we couldn't do contact.
Mm-hmm.
So, every day is a different evolution, a different um, procedures to follow. Like
Right.
I am, flying solo too on the planning. So I am,
Mm.
basically like changing my practice plans maybe twice, 3 times before I even walk into the gym, depending on how many guys are showing up
Right.
that day. If anybody has any symptoms, they stay home. If anybody
Mm-hmm.
has any schoolwork, they stay home.
Yep.
And the clear emphasis now is let's get everybody, doing well in school
Mm-hmm.
and getting through the exam period with, strong mental health, right?
Right. And I think that's the big factor in all this is that mental health side of it, because everybody's got a lot going on that we see that we don't see. And for a lot of guys and girls, I think just being able to be in the gym
Yeah.
is kind of their escape from everything. It's kind of the
Yeah,
one thing that, yeah, there's no games to prepare for, but it's the one thing that is as close to normal as it would be at this time of year, because they're used to
for
be
sure.
going in the gym, they're used to practice, getting shots up, whatever it may be. So this is the one kind of escape from everything else in the world these days that kind of makes it fun and kind of makes them shut their brain off and just remove themselves from the pandemic and everything else for 1 2 hours, and just to have some fun that they may not have otherwise with the
100%.
pandemic and schoolwork and learning online and spending most days probably on their own because classes are online. They get to be around their teammates, their friends, and making it fun, I think, is the biggest part of that mental health side of it for sure.
For sure.
And
For sure. I think like, and then there's also like like some teams are, I can't speak to other teams, but for my team, there's some groups of guys that really like each other.
yep,
I mean, I've been on teams where, everybody likes each other.
yep,
This team that I have this year, everybody for sure likes each other, but there's like groups that are tighter than others. And so
right,
they're just pumped to see their buddies,
yep,
right? Like, and we did, the athletic department did a survey, and the findings that came back were, you know, yeah, people are upset that the season's not happening, but we want to keep practicing. It makes us happy. I want to see my friends. That makes me happy.
yep,
And like the questions were, it was pretty much 75 to 85% of the student athletes at CAP were like, yeah, I just want to keep practicing. Like only a handful of kids were like, no season means I'm not playing.
right,
The rest of them were like, yeah, no, I'm in. I'm all in. And and that's, everybody's entitled to feel any way they want,
hmm,
right? And I'm just really fortunate that I think I got a group of guys that um, still want to keep practicing and keep believing that things are going to go back to normal,
right.
and we're going to have a season, not this season, but we're going to have a season come soon, and we're going to just look forward to that and train to be ready for whenever that happens.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it shows that the guys have that buy-in too. They want to work towards whatever it is coming down the road season-wise. That means they've kind of bought into the program, and obviously seeing their buddies is obviously a good thing. Just to be around friends
Sure.
and break the day-to-day grind of COVID learning. But it also, to me, it shows that they want to improve, they want to get better, they want to kind of grow as a team, as an individual, and kind of work towards the goals you guys have set for a program. So having 75, 85% of the athletes overall say, yeah, like I want to practice, that's got to be music to coaches' ears.
It
People
makes
in
me
the gym.
feel good, and it makes the coaching staff feel great about the players that we brought in.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were practicing before this last 2 week layoff, like a lot of potential with this group.
Right.
We talked a little bit about the recruits last time I was on, and
Mm-hmm.
there's been a lot more guys that we've signed, and and the emails are just keep coming, right? Like there
Right.
is so many kids out there looking for places to play, because I think they're probably feeling the same way as, the men that I have, right?
Yep.
They want to feel normal. They want to feel, they want to work towards something. They want to work together with people, just that contact, and not physical. I don't mean like physical, but just being
Right.
around people that you care about and people that you want to see every day. That's amazing therapy. I mean, I'm really fortunate to work in a high school, and in that high school, I get to see kids that I really love and appreciate, and I get to see them every day, even though in this setting, like, we don't get to, high five or fist pump or anything like that. But, just even the elbow, right? Even the elbow, it's now the elbow tap. I mean, that's been good enough for us. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Just being in a social setting, I think is huge for people. Just to know, like you said, obviously the physical contact, you can't fist pump, you can't high five, you can't do a lot of the things you used to do, but just to know that there are other people out there, and to be able to physically see your buddies and see your friends and actually have a face-to-face conversation, even if it is 6 feet away, does wonders for kids. And I think with recruiting too, I think you see some schools that are in gyms, some schools that aren't practicing at all. And I think the schools that are practicing, like you guys, with the emails coming in, you're going to see a lot of people reaching out to those programs because that family's being built now. And they want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of a program that's in the gym getting better every day. And I understand the pandemic and every school has their different protocols, and it's not really on the coaches. It's no one's fault really that these emails are going more to one school over the other, but people just want to be a part of that social setting. And when they see a school in the gym, they're going to reach out more to them than a school that might not be.
Totally.
And
I totally agree. I think, and then the other part of it is, there's people looking at the landscape of Canada and going, where's this one of the safer places to go? And I think there's a bit of that. I think there's honestly a bit of kids are going, well, Ontario's like this and Quebec's like this, and the Maritimes are doing this, and what's Alberta doing and what's BC doing, and I'm sure there's two-way traffic on that, right? Whereas like some guys are going, oh, I need to get out of BC, and then there's some people going, I need to relocate, I need a fresh start. And so there's all these there's like a huge migration. It feels like it is to me. Like it feels like there's this migration of people taking control of things that they can control, because in the pandemic, as we know, like you are void of control. Like you are being controlled in a sense where like you are unable to do the majority of the things that you're used to doing. And when you do, you have to do them in the constraints that your municipal or provincial or federal government have put on you. And that for a lot of people is very, very difficult. And for me included. And I think that people are having this migration or thinking about changing programs or changing leagues or whatever, because they're like, I want to have more agency in what I'm doing moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's interesting because like every province is kind of doing their own thing, and you see kind of the outside BC, kind of the Maritimes kind of doing their better than everyone else. So you see those are kind of the focal points where people want to go, and then there's certain areas of Ontario that are better than others, and then it's I don't know anymore. It's just a toss up. But I mean, I've thought of relocating. I thought about going wherever it's calm, because this is crazy. And then obviously it's kind of a snap decision. My wife says, no, we're not moving. Ruins all my fun. But I understand why guys and girls want to move around and just kind of be somewhere that gets them as close to normal as they can, which I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. But just whatever the new normal is, as close as they can be to that, they want to be a part of that. And I don't blame them for wanting to maybe they need a fresh start. I don't blame them, but that's, I don't know what else to say to
that. Exactly.
Kind of take each day as it comes, take the new controls, the new restrictions, and
You got to be really flexible. Let's put it that way.
Yes, you have to take
I mean, as a coach,
everything
and
as
we
it
all
comes.
have our as a coach, we all have our issues with control, as you know. I mean, you've
Right.
interviewed a lot of coaches over your time, and
Yep.
doing this podcast, and we all have control issues. And so, this is the first time I've ever felt like, okay, I have to. What can I give up? Right, like that. It's like a checklist. It's like, okay, I can give up this. I can give up that.
Mm-hmm.
I can go easier on these things, but there's certain things I can't give up, and that's like, like for me, it was like, okay, I don't want rat ball. I want some sort of organized offensive basketball, and if that's all I can get, that's fine. That's totally fine. Guys like working on offense. I was like, okay, because like usually I'm I would say like 55-60% of the practice is defensive transition, defensive half court, rebounding, like the classic old man, old woman, jump to pass, shell drill, half court. Like I'm a disciple of Sean Shook, who's the UBC men's assistant, and I like building a defense with a bunch of guys that really look like intimidating and look long and athletic and are in stance. And those things are things that I've really, prided the program on over my time. And, some years it's really good, some years it's not. And it all depends on your best player's buy-in. But this year I've given that right up. I mean, we haven't done a defensive drill yet. We have talked about defense. That's the extent of it, but we are strictly working on offense until further notice. I mean, the thing is the guys have their game day, and every game we've played, we've recorded, and they're watching and decider of your effort, right? It shows what you're actually doing and what you're actually not doing. And I think for players to have that access has been, that's part of the teaching and the accountability of defense. Is like you're watching yourself get blown by over and over again. You're going to change your habit. I don't have to remind you of that. I mean, if I'm putting out your stats and you played 18 minutes and you got 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 steals, you contributed nothing in 18 minutes. I don't have to say anything to that.
No, that speaks for itself.
That's the only. It speaks for itself, and I'm hoping that access that they have to their game tape is what they need to correct a bit of their effort. And we have, like I said, it's an older team, right? So the guys were holding each other accountable to a small extent, but there was definitely that going on in practice. And part of that is the other thing I gave up, which is, I gave up the control of like being the leader every day, right?
Right.
You guys, this is your team. Like, who's the leader on this team? Who wants to talk? Who wants to say something? Go ahead, say whatever you want. Like, like this is a safe space. Yep. We're all trying to get better. I'm trying something new, meaning like this is all new for me. So like, I don't want to dominate the voice. I don't want to be the dominant voice.
Right.
And I think that I'm hoping that helps with leadership development. I'm not looking for an alpha, but I'm looking, because if when you have an alpha, it. Like, yes. I don't have one. But I know that I can develop someone into a leadership role, and we have leaders that have returned. We have leaders that are new, and I don't want to say to these guys like, "Oh, you're the captain." I want people to collectively take responsibility for the things that are going on, right? And that's what I'm looking for with the strategy of like giving up my control of being the dominant voice in practice and being the wet nurse, the nag, right? Like I don't want to be the nag.
No.
I just want to go to practice and like see everybody, put in the stuff that I want to put in, and then watch them play and enjoy it, right? And enjoy watching guys take I guess like exponentially grow is the, the
Right.
technical term, but like I want to just see growth. And that's all I've been trying to get out of, I guess it's been like 15 to 18 practices we've had so far. So,
Okay. And I
yeah.
think, like, obviously, like, as much as the guys want to have fun, you want to have just as much fun, right? I mean, it's an
Yeah.
escape for you, and it gets you around the guys. And the last thing you want to do is be that kind of dominant voice that gets your way, and that's it. And then the guys don't have fun, and then you're not having fun because they're not. And
Yeah. And honestly, I think they need a year off from me. Like, last year we were 5-13. We had all those injuries, like I told you about,
right,
like,
yeah.
we were snake bitten. And so guess what that means, right? You have a coach
Oh
that's
God,
stressed out, that's
yeah.
like wants to control everything, that is trying to basically like, stop the ship from leaking, right? Like we're
Mm-hmm.
bailing out water, and I'm trying to figure out every day how to fix it,
Yeah.
right? And how to plug the holes. And like our film sessions last year, I mean, they do need a year off. I know the new guys, they want to be coached up and they want to
Right.
hear my voice, and I can see that in practice where the new guys are like, like they want to be challenged, they want me to get into them, because they know that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're with me, right? Like they want to be pushed. But I haven't been, right? Like I've I think maybe 3 or 4 times in the practices we've had, I've got into some people, and
Yeah.
it's been like, it hasn't been the same as
No.
it usually is. And for the guys that are returning, that were on the team last year, I think they're welcoming the break
They're welcoming the
of just hearing.
let go of control, coach Kannemeyer version, just have more fun and not get on them every time. They're probably
Yeah. And yeah, I think, and like I think that part of it's been good.
yeah.
And just, if any of the new guys are going to listen to this podcast, I want to reiterate to them, don't worry, there'll be a point where you're going to be like so sick of me that you're not going to want to hear my voice for weeks at a time, and that
Right.
Christmas break's going to be like the most amazing Christmas break you've ever had, because you're like, oh, I get a break from this guy. But for now, it's like, let's just go in and have fun and
Yeah.
enjoy each other's company for sure.
So
Yeah.
enjoy this version while it lasts, because as soon
Yeah.
as we get some normalcy back, that control's going to come back, and you're going to have it back again, as is every other coach. And then these guys are going to be wishing for COVID coach to come back and not post COVID.
Yeah, and unless there's results, right? I mean, that's
Right.
ultimately how
That's
we're
true too.
always judged, right? If we're winning, then they're down. They don't care.
Right.
But if you're not winning and you're still getting crapped on every day in practice, like, that's a hard pill to swallow, right?
Right.
And losing is something that, there's a million little things that go into losing, and the problem with that is that you have to address all those million things, or
Mm-hmm.
else the losing won't stop, right?
Right.
So
That's true. Off of that, then let's talk about some of the new guys
sure.
you've brought in. Because last time we did this, we only had one announced so far. Is Julian Duker out of
He's been
Trinity
great, by the
Western.
way. He's been great. I mean, he's an unbelievably strong athlete.
Okay.
Really good lower body strength, tree trunk legs. I mean, he looks like he kind of looks like a tight end, like a U Sports tight end, like,
Yeah.
fat. He's super fast. He's got a track background, maybe a
Okay.
big wideout, like, like a, Julio Jones type
Okay.
wideout, like he's got that kind of frame.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love his compete. His shoots it better than I thought. And he has a dog in him, in the sense that, like, he likes to get after people defensively.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't quite seen that yet, but he's doing his best to keep the intensity up, and he's one of those new vocal guys, right? He
Mm-hmm.
wants to say something, and I've been trying to encourage him to say as much as he wants.
Yeah. And like new guys will find their voice as they come in, but I mean, like
Yeah.
being compared to a guy like Julio Jones, I don't think that's a bad comparison.
No.
By any means, hopefully he takes that to heart and hold it over some guys to get them in the gym and work towards his
Yeah,
comparison.
he's a bully guard. I mean, he's
Okay.
just you get some dirty buckets. He does some greasy things, and
Hmm.
I like that. And we're gonna need that.
Yeah. Every team needs a player to like that.
Yeah,
The greasy
yeah,
buckets
he's
and
very
things.
challenging, right?
Yeah.
He's a challenging human, which is good.
Since then, I don't
Yeah,
know if this is the full class, but there's been 4 more guys announced on Instagram. I couldn't miss some more. Bright Dodoza,
yeah,
Abe Murray, Kobe Mcknight, and Tyrone Seneguan. That said that
yeah.
right?
Instead of going, yeah. Well,
Just kind of thoughts on how they've kind of adjusted and adapted to everything with the Blues so far.
Bright has had, he's only been at a few practices because he's working full time, and he
Okay.
chose to work full time, and so
Right.
he's working. When he's at practice, he's an older guy, unreal dude to deal with, and he's a good fit for us, like in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like his size, speed, length. Like he's about 6'8". We weren't sure how tall he was, but
Mm-hmm.
he's 6'7", 6'8". And he's probably got the best, longest wingspan on the team. I don't know what it would be. I can't. It's definitely bigger than 6'8". So I mean, he's a very intimidating defensive presence. We just haven't seen enough of him, and that's due to working, and that's understandable because that was his choice, and that's the choice he made for his. He's an older guy. He's got a career that he's trying to better. And do the business program at CAP. So like that's his goals, and we're trying to help him through that.
Right.
The next player is Abraham Murray. I mean, he hasn't missed a practice. 6'5", long armed, big bodied guard. Like he's like a guard forward tweener, like a throwback. He's got like some hesitation, herky jerky type stuff, like gets his body into people, bullies guys at the hoop, good catch and shoot ability, can create his own shot. That's not his strength, but he can create a shot in a short clock scenario, which is helpful, right? Like you need guys that can do that when things break down. He can face up if you post him up. Decent offensive rebounder, decent defensive rebounder, and has good vision. So encouraged him to get the rebound and go see up the floor, probe the defense, kick, right? See what's going on. He can come off a ball screen, so he just can kind of do anything. So it's like trying to figure out what's the best spot for him to go into will be pivotal going forward as one of our import players.
Seems like a bit of versatility there. Kind of gives you a few different options on where he can go.
Yeah, so it's
never
trying
a bad
to figure
thing.
out what part of the Swiss Army knife we're going to pull out on that night, right? So it's like what defense would fit him well, and that's it. The other good part about not putting in a defense right away is like I can kind of see what we do, right? And what guys want to try to do, and that's been helpful too, because otherwise I would do ABC. This way I'm kind of like, well, maybe it's just AB. Maybe it's just A and B. But anyway,
and
getting off track a bit. But yeah, that's what he's like. He's very versatile, has enough shooting ability that people have to honor it, and he can handle really well for a 6'5" guy and make decisions.
And kind of off that too.
Yeah, Boris Diaw is my comparison.
Okay, that's not a bad little comparison.
Yeah.
Like kind of off that too, like on the defense thing too, without having any schemes, you can kind of see what guys naturally tend to do. And then you can kind of tailor your schemes or where they fit around kind of their natural tendencies, which probably kind of helps you kind of see what they do and kind of build it around
or see what they don't do, right?
Exactly.
Like, right. Like if you're going to put in a pressure system, you want to make sure you put it in when you have a bunch of guys that like to pressure, right? Where and anyway, I could go on that stuff for a while. I don't want to bore all the listeners with that. Kobe Mcknight, I mean, he's opting out for the next couple of weeks because he wants to go home for the holidays and he's got travel. So, power to him on that.
Yep.
But he was, efficient shooter, catch and shoot guy, has shown a bit more off the closeouts than we thought we thought we had in him. Like he has ability to get, 1-2 dribble moves and be efficient with his with that. Where what I've said to him, is like be more aggressive, be more assertive on defense, and treat every defensive possession with importance.
Right.
And he's getting that message, and he's adapting to, hopefully having a bigger role than, his first 2 years at Douglas, where he was playing on such a great team.
Right.
That, it was hard to get in that rotation. Whereas my expectation is that in your third year, like, you need to step up and you need to take on that responsibility. And that's clearly, the part of it where maybe he wasn't going to get on the floor at Douglas is because, he has to care more about the little tiny things that make up a defensive possession. And, some possessions we see that and some possessions we don't.
Right.
But his shooting ability is unquestioned. I mean, I think he's, I don't know if he's leading us in percentage in the three scrimmages we've played, but he's up there. I mean, he takes good shots, and when he takes good shots, they go in. I mean, It's great. I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm sure it's close to 50% on wide open shot threes. So he's shooting the ball well.
It's a good sign. That's a good sign to see. Definitely. And then last one, Tyrone.
I mean, he's our. I wouldn't say he's like our primary scorer. He's what I've been really pleasantly surprised about him is that he's like a great number 2 scorer, and he plays to that. He plays really well off the ball. Like, he cuts. He understands concepts. He understands spacing really well and movement. So like he does little things that I haven't even talked about yet that like create more space for ball handlers when he's off the ball. And with him, it's like teaching and talking about, again, those little things. Cause like there's some possessions where, he's ultra efficient, takes the ball, rips, goes hard to the rim, dunks it. And then there's other possessions where he gets a switch and then he like settles for a 3-point shot. So like with him, it's like decision-making and then defensive accountability every possession, because he can lock guys up, right? He's got this, 6'3", he's got the length and the athleticism to lock down premier wings in our league. And he's shown that he can do that in practice. It's just getting it out of him every possession. And those are all things that would happen, I think, if we had played, if we were having a season. Those are things that Tyrone would be acutely aware of, right? Where, you can just see it. Like, you tell him once and he's doing it, right? It's the same thing with Kobe. It's like that's the beauty of all these guys, really. You tell them once and they start to work that through their head and adjust it, which is great.
Yeah. And
so he's got the potential of being a starter. He has the potential of being an all-league player.
Yeah.
Because in our scrimmages so far, I mean, he's an explosive playmaker. So he makes plays that lead to like 6-0, 8-0 runs.
Okay.
Because he does things that there's only a handful of guys in Canada at our level that can do the things that Tyrone can do athletically. Yeah.
And I think from like just the 5 guys you just talked about too, adding kind of all veterans who have been around a bit, so they know kind of what it takes to be successful. And you've got Tyrone and Kobe that played with that talented Douglas team that have been there. They've been at the top level, so they know what it takes to get there. And just that maturity level from all 5 guys, I don't think you can really replace that. And adding that to the mix with some younger guys and from last year that are taking on different roles, I think having those guys around kind of makes everybody better at the same time.
Couldn't agree more. And like it's like the difference between dealing with like a high school kid and like a professional athlete, really. Like that's the way they kind of are. Like they're just like, especially the 2 Douglas guys, like they were part of, arguably a top 3 program in the country for the last 2 years. VIU beat them in our provincial final 2 years ago, and VIU won the national championship, right? And that game went to overtime, and that's how good Douglas was. And so when you're dealing with guys that played on that team, even though they were rookies that year, like you're dealing with someone that's like, they've been to the pinnacle of our league, and they want to get back there, and everything. You're just there to guide them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not control them. Like
Mm-hmm.
they know what to do, and they know that when they do something wrong, that
Yep.
you're going to hold them accountable, and they're going to respect that, right?
Yep.
And that's the big difference between a veteran and a rookie. Whereas
Yep.
the rookie's like, "What are you talking about, coach? I'm I've been averaging 35 a game my whole career.
Yep.
Like, what are you going to tell me? My you know what stinks? Like, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
100%. I'm going to. Mm-hmm.
yeah. That air ball three and then that blow by on the other end. That's not how we do business here at
No,
all.
no. Like,
um, and then and moving past those players, we've added a couple other ones. Really fun prospects. The first one would be Javon Woodbine, who played at Medicine Hat College.
okay. Yep.
He played 2 years at Medicine Hat. He was kind of like a spot starter off the bench with, Kieran Burgess,
Yep.
who you would know because he's one of the best players in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of statistically, like his statistics are bananas.
Yep.
For anybody that's listening that doesn't know Burgess, I think he was like 25 and 16 a couple years ago. Something crazy like that.
It was incredible. It's too easy inside for him. There was a game, I don't know how many rebounds he had, but I think it broke records of some kind. I'm gonna have to look it up while you go off.
Yeah, like it's impressive. Like I have synergy. So when I was scouting Javon as he was trying to come to change schools and come to BC, I would watch Burgess and go, this guy's like Rodman. Like he's like 6'2". I mean, I don't think he's taller than 6'2". I really don't.
No, I don't think he's not the tallest guy in
Not
the world.
tall. No, he's just got amazing positional skills and anticipation.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, moving on to Javon, like, I mean, he's like, it's like you're having he's a veteran point guard, a guy that come in and go, okay, can you do ABC? And he's like, yeah, I can do ABC. And then he finds out DE. He's been around long enough that he sees another wrinkle in what you're trying to implement. And I love players like that because then it's like having another assistant coach, right? Because you're like, okay, well, this is what we're trying to do. And then he'll be like, yeah, but coach, like if we do it like this, like, and you add, and then you're like, yeah, no, that's great. Let's do that. Let's roll with that. Mm-hmm. And we've had a practice where Javon basically changed a play that, that we had, or an action, not a play, but like an action concept. And now we're just going to stick with it because it works so well the way he decided to do it, which was great. I mean, that's synergy in motion right there.
Right.
But, he's been good. He shoots the ball a lot better than his tape suggested. Mm-hmm. Left-handed, which I love. And, he's a bigger guard, so he's something we don't really have. Like, he's kind of like built like a punt returner in football. Like, he's, he's stocky and, bowling ball. And, his NBA comparison is like, he's like, I think his best basketball is when he's kind of playing like tough defense, like, and hitting open threes, kind of like Derek Fisher. Like, he kind of reminds me of that big, tough point guard, old school throwback point guard. So he's been nice surprise as well. And again, another veteran guy. Yeah. Next we have Malik Holmes, who played at Langara for a year, and he played for me out of high school. So he went for me, and then he did the recreation program at Langara and played there and had success with Coach Eberhard, and he won a bronze medal at Langara with Ravi Basra and that group. And he was a role player off the bench, and another guy that like is a veteran, communicates well. You know what you're getting when you walk in the gym. He's matured. He's been resilient. He's made it through a bunch of health problems that he had in his first couple of years playing. And so like, he's healthy, he's happy. And, we're just starting to rev up the engine on him, he didn't play for the last 2 years. So everything's timing. Like, you can just see his timing's just off. But once we get that timing back, he's the guy that's whether you start him or bring him off the bench, he's a scorer. Right. And a guy that can get his own shot. So another guy that's like offensively knows how to get put the biscuit in the basket, as we say.
Right. Got to kind of ease him back into it with the 2 years off, kind of get him back into the rhythm of playing all
Yeah,
the
he doesn't have his
time.
rhythm.
Right.
There's you can see it. Like me and him were talking about it when we were practicing 2 weeks ago. It's like you can see he's like just a little hesitant.
Mm-hmm.
He's just missing like some little layups here and there.
Yeah.
And I just told him to simplify it, and I think his last scrimmage was his best scrimmage.
Yeah.
So there's no rush. That's just the facts of where he's at right now in terms of his play.
Just before you jump on, I just found the stats for Burgess for anybody who doesn't know. He had 24 and 18. That was the first half of the 2018-19 season. He also broke the ACAC single game record with 31 rebounds in a game and 24 defensive rebounds for a guy who's maybe 6'2" on a good day.
It's crazy. I mean, watch the tape. I encourage people to find tape on him. It's like watching like a rebounding savant in the way he positions himself. And it's actually quite simple. Like if you watch him very carefully, what he does really well is he just goes to the weak side of every shot. Like he somehow manages his way and plays the 60%. 60% of shots go to the weak side of the hoop, and he basically plays those percentages with his extraordinary probably wingspan and his anticipation.
He just does whatever he does, it works. And I mean, works. 31 rebounds in a game, that's just shy of a rebound a minute. That's
in a FIBA game, that's insane. It's insane. Next, we have Alex Joseph, who played at Grand Prairie for 2 seasons, I believe, and then played at a junior college in United States on the East Coast. I'm not familiar with which one it is.
Okay.
He is a 6'6", 6'7" big. He's like a true 5. I was on the market, looking for the true 5s out there. There's so little of them left, right? But if you go up against one, you better have one.
Right.
You better have one, because he's going to basically blow up your, VIUs are very good at this. They always have one guy that's like a true 5. Like they had Jared Dorby for all those years. Jared maybe misses some layups from time to time. Don't get me wrong. Like he has his imperfections, but Jared will basically wear down your front line, and that's what Alex, my hope is that he'll do. He's got a jump hook to either shoulder. He can drop step and dunk. He can run the floor. He can block shots. And I'm really looking forward to working with him. He got here right before the 2-week break. So tonight's our first practice with him. I've watched all his game tape at Grand Prairie. I'm super excited. We don't have a guy like him, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. He's going to put a lot of people on posters, and he's going to keep people accountable. If they don't guard him in the post, he's going to go to work.
That's what you want. It's what you want to see. If you make a mistake, make them pay for it, and make sure. Well, for the other coach, make sure they don't do it again. But if they keep doing the same thing, just make them pay until they find a way to stop you.
Easy buckets, right? Any way you can get easy buckets. That's my lesson. The simplest, easiest lesson you give to any young coach. Like create an offense or create ideas that are going to get you easy layups, right? And if you can have people that can get you easy layups, get those people on your team. I mean, that's the number one thing you want for offensive efficiency basketball. Like you still need to get layups. Yeah, it's great. You can shoot all 3s in the world. Right. In playoffs, you better have guys that can get layups.
And he's probably a guy that's just itching to get with coming in just before the break, and now he'll just be probably raring to go when
he's our third import, and he's been basically doing school online since September in New York. So he's again another story of resilience, right? Like unbelievable, like what he's doing with basically in an apartment in New York, and now he's living in an apartment in Burnaby. So it's like these stories are amazing, like what these guys have to deal with, like with this pandemic, right? I'm trying to think if I'm missing anybody. I might actually I don't want to miss any in case they listen to the podcast, right? So.
you're gonna open yourself up to some. Well, coach, you talked about all these guys, and why didn't you talk about me? Where was my shout out? Where am I? My story? Where's my whatever?
So there's three more. Yeah, there's three more. Okay.
Okay.
So we have Garrett Riley, who played at UBC Okanagan. He had a cup of coffee at the University of Fraser Valley, and he's kind of playing now at probably the level he was supposed to play at. Like he's like a grinder, 6'5", big. He's like the classic U Sports tweener, right? Like he's not fast enough to play the 3-hole at the U Sports level,
right?
But he's really like a good 4 at the college level. But at the U Sports level, he's not big enough to be the 4.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, or quick enough, because the U Sports 4s can be so athletic, right? So like, he's kind of working his way to where he actually should be, which is a college 4, like a perimeter player with some big skills, like some toughness things. Like, he's a hockey guy. Okay. He's tough. He's gritty. He gets into guys at practice, and then he can hit an open 3, right? And he can pass, which is something we didn't know he had, because he was a guard in high school, and then he grew, and now he's bigger, right? So, right. I think he's 3rd year out of high school, so he's just a man now, right? Right. And, I've liked him. You got to have a quirky guy in your roster. He's our quirky guy. Like, the guys don't know what to make of him yet. He's so different from a lot of the guys we have on the roster, and I love that. It gives nice balance to the team, right? And like, he's a guy that, like, if he was, if he had made a mistake, you could grill him as hard as you wanted, and he wouldn't even flinch. Like, he's that kind of guy. Okay. And I love guys like that. So he's been great. Brennan Bailey is back. Okay. All-star on our team 2 years ago. Yeah. And he's just, I'll just say for Brennan, like, I think a lot of people that are from BC know who he is. I mean, he's one of the best ball handlers in the province. He's a scoring guard. He's a lefty. He can, the dude moves like Iverson. Like, if you really want to compare, like, what he's like, a left-handed Iverson, maybe like Brandon Jennings. Like, okay. He led us in dunks 2 years ago. He's 5'11". Like, he's a freak. Like, he was an all-star, league all-star 2 years ago, second team, and then he was a provincial all-star. Like, he was, one of the 5 guys selected as a provincial all-star, and he averaged like 24, 25, and that was when we had Denver. Sparks guest, and Denver was one of the best players in Canada that year, and Brennan was our second scorer, and in provincials he was became our primary scorer, because the attention was so strong on Denver, right? So Brennan has had success. He's older, and he, like everybody else, he just wants another kick at it, one last kick at it.
Yeah, and with him returning too, he's familiar with the system already. So having him come back in after the year off, and it's kind of just, again, kind of make up for lost time and kind of another kick at it and see what happens.
Yeah, a seamless transition. And I think that. Oh, and then the last player is Darcy Malhouse. He is our youngest player in terms of college experience. He played at BC Christian Prep for a couple of years, and this is his first college season. 6'7", long, another size guy, a guy that, like, has great pick and roll ability. Like, he's been our best roller in practice. Okay. Like a lot of bigs, he thinks he can shoot threes, but has a tremendous feel for the game. Like, a guy that clearly just plays a lot wherever he plays. Yeah. And I noticed that on his game film that he sent to me. I was like, oh, look at this guy. He's got all these kind of cool skills that, like, 6'7" guys don't usually have. And, like, we get to see those a little bit. Like, he is aware that he is not the man like he is in the men's league that I sent me the game tape from. But, like, he still tries some of those things, and he has the guts to do it. And that's been, it is cool. And he has a ton of potential. And who knows what kind of player he could be, right? Like, and so that's the beauty of this. If there are positives to glean from this pandemic, is that you can bring in 20, 21 guys. I think we have 21 guys, and you can mold a team any way you want, and you can kind of like give them all an opportunity to progress and get better, and they don't lose any eligibility. So there are
Right.
pros to
Mm-hmm.
this madness, and
Yep.
that is probably it, that you get to see an extensive tryout of these guys, right? And that's been the saving grace of this whole experience.
So what I take from that is you have 11 is what I counted. 10 have some sort of post-secondary experience already under their belts. That's a good thing to have. So
Oh yeah.
you can't really teach experience, and then for Darcy, be the youngest guy to have the comfort level to try some of those skills that he has in practice as a first year guy.
Yeah.
That's good to see too, because he's already comfortable in the system. He's comfortable in what he can do, and obviously he probably knows that what he does in men's league is not going to translate to the college game. But just the sheer fact that he's willing to try some of the little things that he can do differently in practice just shows that he's comfortable enough. He understands what his game is, what he can bring, and if it works, great. And if now's the
Right.
time to try it. Now's the time with no eligibility, no games, no whatever. Now's the time to try those things and see what happens.
It's going to be interesting when Alex comes in today, and we've had, like I said, we've had about 6 weeks of practice where, we haven't had that true five. We have like these 4 or 5 tweeners. So that's going to be the most fascinating part of the next 2 or 3 weeks of practice is how are you going to play when you get beat up, right? Because that's what a true five does. They just beat the hell out of your front line. And now we're going to have a guy that is gonna run the floor and seal every time. Because I mean, a lot of our players do a bit of both. Like they like to, they want to shoot the ball, they want to play outside, they don't want to do the gritty things every possession. Like Sam Bailey, for example, like, he's not a five. Like he's got all sorts of potential playing all different positions.
Right.
And we don't want to limit him to just playing the five, but he was our most active five in terms of post ups and rebounding and all that stuff, him and Darcy. But now they're going to have to cover this, 6'7" behemoth who's going into his last year of eligibility, and that's going to change things, and it's going to make things even more competitive. And quite frankly, I can't wait. It's going to be super fun to observe.
Yeah. And that's the goal of this whole thing. Just have fun, get guys in there, see how they handle now getting pushed around and beat up by a true five, see how they handle it, and hopefully doesn't take Alex too long to shake off some rust and get in there.
No,
and
I
throw
don't think
these
so.
guys around a bit.
He's pretty motivated. Like, we talk a lot, and he's told me he's been working out the whole time. So I think that I like I said, you have this older group, and it's just so different from having a team where you have a bunch of rookies you gotta baby around and teach them the ropes. And it's that old saying that, like, I think it kind of gets used a little bit too much now, but iron sharpens iron.
Right.
And it truly is when they're playing against each other. Like the guys are not getting away with poor habits, and because they're going against a guy that's played the same amount of years as them, there's no hierarchy. There's no, I'm not controlling who's playing and who's not playing. They're controlling it. So if you're not playing in the fourth quarter, your peers have told you that you're not playing in the fourth quarter. And that's an interesting dynamic unto itself. It's they're creating their own hierarchy, their own leadership. Like I explained earlier, it's like a social experiment. And I'll come on maybe at the end of this in June or something like that again, and tell you how it went, because right now it seems like it's going okay, and we'll see how it goes moving forward. But the early returns is that they're keeping themselves accountable. They're having fun, and there is levels of development happening because they're playing against a guy that's a college player every practice, that potentially is a college rotation player or a starter, and that's important.
I'd be interested to hear how that all plays out when it's all said and done. How many guys like take to their like they're setting their own standards, they're setting their own kind of rules on what like their level of like success is, and if you're not meeting this, then you're not going to play. And it's interesting to see how they create a dynamic. We'll have to do it again just to hear how this
Yeah,
all
and if
plays
there was
out.
ever a year to do it, isn't this the year? Right? Like
100%.
isn't I don't know. Like I think I kind of felt like doing something completely different with it, and we're gonna see how it goes. And the other interesting thing I'll mention is we don't call fouls.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, 15 to 20% of my job is arguing with players during scrimmages about foul calls in the past, because I'm the referee in the past,
Hmm.
right? And I'll tell you right now, I think I'm one of the best referees in the business. I'm decisive. I'll explain things. I'll communicate,
Hmm.
and I'll tee guys up if they're getting out of hand.
Right.
And so in the past, it's always been like, I'm the show, right? I come in just like all the other Pac West refs. I'm the show.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Everyone's here to see the refs.
Yeah, everyone's here to see the refs, and I'm going to establish my authority early on in the game. If any of the refs of our league refs, I'm just joking. I really love you
Yep.
guys.
It's not. If
Don't
any of
hold
them
this
listen
against
to it,
me.
if any of the Pac West refs listen to this, it's not about the Pac West. It's every other ref outside of the Pac West. And
Totally. Anyway, I'm not the show anymore. I
right.
said, you guys figure it out on your own. If you want to call someone out for calling something soft, go ahead.
Yep.
See what the repercussions are, test the waters.
Yep.
And one of the I think it might have been Abraham the other day, a couple, 4 weeks ago, was saying that the loudest guy is going to get the most calls. Well, maybe that's the case. I don't know, but it's taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
They're not used to it. It's getting players that are quiet. Like for example, we have a player named Campbell who's going in his 4th year.
Yep.
He's one of the best leaders I've ever seen in terms of like leading by example. Right? But he's not a talking guy. You maybe get a sentence or two out of him a practice.
Yeah.
And we're getting a lot more than a sentence out of practice now, that he has to call his own fouls, or he has to watch guys call their own fouls. He's got a lot to say about that. I didn't know he was so fired up about referees' discretion. So he's
Interesting.
He's coming out of his shell a little bit, seeing some of these the unfairness of calling your own fouls, we'll say.
This might be what he needed to kind of find his voice and vocalize. Now the refs might never hear the end of it when we get
back,
and now he's vocal again.
Oh yeah, I've seen him use swear words as like verbs, adjectives, nouns, proper nouns. So I mean, he's a different person now that I've stopped refereeing. I mean, I guess before he could just rely on me to control tempo and all that stuff, and
now he's got to do it
anymore,
himself.
CJ, not anymore.
Swear words find their way into every part of a sentence when you're on your own. It's how it is. Yeah. It makes it more fun. One last thing I want to ask you before we wrap up here. We got a few minutes.
Sure.
Just kind of the updates. Last time we talked, you mentioned a few CCAA historical projects. Have those taken off any further, or are they still kind of in the works for the foreseeable future? And for those who don't know, there was talk of a book and a top 100 list.
The list is finished. Like I am.
Okay.
I made the list. I'm happy with it. There's going to be for sure a lot of questions and debate about a lot of where I put players, but I've developed the system in terms of like how to rank guys according to their time in the league, the impact they had, and most importantly, winning. Right, winning was valued as the highest metric that I used. Where I'm at, I'm maybe 25 or so of the guys of the 100 guys, I'm 25 of them are kind of finished.
Okay.
The introduction to the book's finished, and the compiling the research, that's not finished, but it's close.
Okay.
And it's a project that I think will take a few more years, but it's definitely like the vision of it is there in terms of like how are you gonna make 250 pages? That's no problem. Now it's
Right.
just finding the time to sit down, and because when I do sit down and give it some thought, production happens, because it's all right here, like, this
Right.
little part of the brain just waiting. Like I said, when you research something like a top 100 list, and you're looking through websites and statistics and game sheets and whatever over 40 years, it sticks in your brain, and my brain really likes researching stuff like this, and so it's all there. I just have to, it's just the time. It's all about the time sitting down. But yeah, the list is done. I won't reveal the number one player of all time. I don't want everybody over in the East Coast going going crazy, because it's, I'll just, maybe I'll hint that in my opinion, the best player in CCAA history is from the West Coast. I'll just say that.
Interesting.
That's the reveal. Maybe next time I'll reveal another part of, maybe a clue or something like that.
But I like it.
I did lean on winning, and I thought that the player that had the most success and statistics and legacy was a West Coast guy.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just say that.
I like it. So I'm going to ask, without giving too much away, how long do we have to wait to see the list, or is that just in the book?
That's a great question. I mean, I should get some advice on that, because there's a part of me that wants to release it as like, just the list,
right?
To maybe build up the momentum for the book when I release it. So maybe I would release it first to start a conversation. It'll be a strong conversation.
100%. It'll be a very opinionated conversation.
Yeah, get a debate going, and maybe drum up some anticipation for the book. But I'm not close enough to do that yet. And I think releasing that list out of context, without the details of why guys are here and why guys are there and why guys are there, would be unfair to the players that have dedicated a portion of their teens and 20s to this game, the game that we love, right?
So is the list kind of the basis of the book? So the book is explaining the top 100. Is that, or is the book kind of like
that's part of it?
Historical. Okay.
It's a take on some of the great stories.
Okay.
Dawson. Yeah, Dawson, Olga.
Yep.
Who coached at Dawson. We don't talk about her, do we?
No.
We haven't talked about her. Or, I mean, you know who she is. I know. Yep. I didn't know who she was until I started researching these players. And then I go, hold on. A woman was coaching men's basketball in the 1970s? Like that's amazing.
Yep.
Then we have this whole history of First Nations players where their lives are have all these different parts to it that players of privilege don't have to deal with, and they need their own list. Then there's the guys in the 70s, and that I can't even find their statistics. I just know George Brown College won a ton of titles.
Yep.
How did that happen? That's that's another part of this book. That's another part of the story.
Yeah.
And then the list is the kind of the conclusion of the story. Is we know these stories. Here's where I'm coming from, and then here's the list of the top 100 men that ever played in the league.
Interesting. I think that'd be cool. And you can kind of, I don't know, obviously timelines are obviously different and see how it comes out, but you could almost release kind of the list, one player a day for or two players a day for 50 days or 100 days. Then player one is the release date of the book, and they got to buy the book to find out who's number one, and just kind of that.
Those
are conversation.
You want to go into business together? Do you know how to edit?
We can definitely work that into something. I think I'm sure I'll gladly help out however I can. That'd be fun. I think
that would be amazing.
Into something,
well, it looks like we just got, we haven't made a contract yet, but I mean, that's a great, I need an editor for sure. Cause this is going to be, my writing skills are okay. They're good, but I need someone to help me for sure bring it to the finish line. That's what a good editor does. And But that's a fantastic idea. I think that is exactly what I would do.
Because then you
Now
could
that I've
have
heard
you'd
that
have a
amazing idea.
different conversation on a different player every day for
Yeah.
99 days, and then day 100, book is here. Then you got to buy it to find out who's number one.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love
Interesting.
that.
Okay,
That's great.
we're on to something here.
We are onto something.
I just
Absolutely.
I feel bad. I kind of just forced myself on it, but I mean, you know
No,
what?
no,
I
this
get.
is a, I mean, the people that helped me do this list, there has to be even the acknowledgement chapter of this book is going to be long. Like the people that helped me on this is,
Right.
you're talking 50 years of 45 years of people
Right.
in their experience in this league, right?
Right.
People, all across Canada.
Anything else you want to add in? Any last words of what you've got going on, the team, uh, anything really at all? I'll leave the kind of the last word to you before I wrap it up.
No, I think like we covered a lot. I appreciate coming on. Like I said to you before we went on record, like this is therapeutic for me just to, grow this game, grow our league, and moving forward, like we want to all work together
Right.
to bring the best product on the floor for our schools, for our
Yep.
leagues, and for these kids, right, moving forward, and just keep this legacy going. Because I mean, what I'll link it back to with the book is there's an unreal history,
Yep.
an unreal oral history that has been told,
Mhm.
but needs to keep being told so we
Right.
don't forget.
Yeah. Just keep bringing it to like the next generation and keep saying this is where the games come from, and just keep retelling it, but then adding new chapters as we go, because there's going to be new stories every year, every 5 years, with players kind of coming and going.
Yeah,
Use
the list is going to change.
Yep. Yep. Use kind of the history as your base, as your
Yeah.
foundation. Continue to tell those stories, but then add your new ones in, so then everybody just continues to add to just the one big book that is kind of CCAA and youth sports basketball.
100%.
But thank you again for coming on a second
Thank
time. I
you.
mean, the first time, I guess you had just enough fun to come and do it a second time. And hopefully the second time went just as well, so we can do it a third time and get the updates and see how the guys handled
Yeah,
their own hierarchy.
let
And
the great experiment begin.
hopefully they don't kill each other by the time this is all done. But well, anytime you want to do this again, we are more than happy to
Beautiful.
make it happen for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on. So thank you.
Anytime.